Hi lovelies, it's your girl Eva and today we'll be treating skirt pattern making. So I'll be using this measurement, which is basically my measurement. I will just go straight into it. The first thing I'll be doing is to mark my hip measurement, which is 40. I divided by 4 and I'm getting 10 inches. So this is me marking 10 inches all the way down to the length of the skirt. Then I connect it with a straight line. So basically this hip measurement, the line is creating a border for our skirt. Next I'm going to measure my waist to hip, my waist to knee, and also the skirt length. So my waist to hip is 10, so I'll just mark it like this. Then I'll mark my waist to knee, which is 22 inches. Then I'll mark my skirt length at 26 inches. Then I'll just connect these lines. This is my hip line, this is my knee line, and my skirt length. So it's best to label them so that you don't get confused. This is waist to hip, this is waist to knee, and then our skirt length. So here on the hip line, I'll be marking 1 inch above and 1 inch below. This is to avoid any bulging on the hip area so that you have a smooth finish on your hip area. So I mark 1 inch up and 1 inch down. Then next on the waistline, I'm going to mark for my waist. Now my waist is 28, which divided by 4 is 7. Don't forget that we are using division of 4 for our skirt measurement. So now my 7, I'm going to add 1 inch for that. So I'll just mark it at 8. Then next I'll go to my knee line, my waist to knee line, and I'm going to mark my break width. So the formula for break width is waist plus 4 all divided by 4. Or if you don't want it too shaped, you could use your hip minus 4 all divided by 4, and you repeat that same measurement on the skirt length. Then you just use your ruler to connect these dots together. This is going to give you the shaping of your skirt. So using the upper side of my ruler, the slimmer side, I'm going to connect the waist to my hip using the curvy side of my pattern master. Then I'll turn my ruler to the straight side and connect the lower hip line to the knee line like this. Then I'll just connect with the straight line to the skirt length. Now in case there is a bulge, if there is a sharp edge here, you could just blend it in with your ruler like this. Good. Now we are done with, basically this is our front block. We are almost done. The next thing we'll be doing is just to take our darts. So the total here is 8. We'll just use the midpoint, which is 4 inches for our darts. So I'll just mark 4 inches downwards. This is me marking 4 inches downwards. Now the length of your dart is totally dependent on you. You can use 6, 7, 5. It all depends on how long you want it. I prefer to use 6, so I always tend to use 6 for my skirt. But just make sure it is not too close to your hip line. You could use all the way to 7. Some people can even use 8. Now since I left 1 inch for my dart, I'll be taking ½ inch to the left and to the right to create my dart leg. So I'll connect it to the point 6 that I had marked initially, to the left and to the right. So basically this is my dart. So I'll just shade out the dart area. So after shading out my dart, I'll shade out this other portion so that we'll just know what is going out and we don't get confused. Now the final thing we'll be doing on this front block is to create a curve on the center front of the skirt block. So I'll just go down by maybe ½ inch or 0.75. So here I use 0.75 and I'll just connect to the waistline like this. So I'll shade out that area as well. This is just to avoid having a straight curve around your waistline. So this is all for our front pattern. We are good to go. Don't forget to label your pattern. And this is it. Very simple and straightforward. Next, we are going to proceed to cut our back pattern. And the very first thing we'll do is to mark our zip allowance. Now, I like to use 2 inches because it's most comfortable for me. You can use any inches you like for your zip allowance. So I mark 2 inches all the way from the initial border line to create my zip allowance. Now just connect it all the way down. Oops, sorry about that. Alright, so this is our zip allowance. Let's just write it so that we don't mix up any lines. Now we'll leave our zip allowance and proceed to repeat the same thing we did in our front block to the back. The same thing from the zip allowance line. So now the first thing we'll do is to mark our hip border, which is the same thing we used in the front, 10 inches. So this will serve as the border line for the back of the skirt as well. We'll connect it with our ruler. The next thing we are going to mark our waist to hip line, which is 10 inches. Then we'll mark our waist to knee, 22 inches, just exactly how we did in the front block. Then we'll mark our skirt length as well, which is 26 inches. Sorry you can't see it because of my camera, but then I marked 26 inches down there. Then I connected all 3 lines. So on the hip line again, we are going to go up and down by 1 inch, just like we did in the front block. So for this one, I'm going to be using pencil, just so that, because I'll be making alterations, so I'll just use pencil so that the marker line doesn't confuse us. So I'm marking my waistline at 8, the same thing I used in the front, including the dart allowance. Then I'm also using 8 for my break width, which is what I used in front as well. And still using the same 8 at my base. Then I'm going to just connect it with my curve pattern master. So I'm intentionally using pencil here because we are going to eventually erase or use marker for the actual line that will be cutting. So if you don't want to do the back hip curve, you can basically stop here and just cut out with your zip allowance. But if you want to do the back hip curve, now just pay attention to these alterations I'll be making. Now you see this is our initial curve line, right? We are going to be making alterations, which is very simple and straightforward. On each line, we'll be marking 1 inch on the hip line, 1 inch above and 1 inch below for all the lines. Then on our shipping line as well, we've gone 1 inch above and 1 inch below. Now on the top of the waistline, in the first zip line, we'll go in by 1 inch, and on the second zip line, we go in by another inch. On the knee line, we equally go in by 1 inch and another inch on the second zip allowance line. Now, we now have our 1 inch alterations, which will connect this way. Don't forget to also go in by 1 inch on the length, on the skirt length line. Now, this is how you connect it. And then from waist to hip, to knee, and to the skirt length like this. Now just use my curved side of my ruler to connect it so that you can see it very clearly. So this is our back hip curve that we are creating here. Then with a straight line, I connect the lower part and then end it to the skirt length like this. I'll repeat this same thing on the second zip allowance. So this is me altering my zip allowance to become a curve instead of the straight line it was initially. It is very simple, just 1 inch alterations and you're good to go. Now this 1 inch is not compulsory. You could use whatever you're comfortable with depending on the ratio of your waist to hip. So after connecting the lines, this is what it looks like. Okay, so this is it. I wish I didn't use marker here so that it wouldn't have been confusing. I would have just cleaned up that line so that you can see the curve clearly. But the deed has already been done. So this is our booty curve now. I'll just use I'll just dot the zip allowance area so that we could differentiate it from the several lines that are there. So now this dotted region is our zip allowance, and if you can see, it's now in a curve. Oh no, we made a mistake there. I curved the wrong line. Let me just shade out that portion and dot the other side. You see, these lines can be really confusing, so you have to pay keen attention so that you don't make such mistakes. So that will be all. This is our hip, our booty curve, as some people will call it, but it's back hip curve. So we'll just shade out all the other portions that will be taken out so that it doesn't get too confusing. Now, because of the alterations we did here, we'll have to make adjustments on our shaping line as well. So the same inch we used to go in, 1 inch, will now go out on our shaping line by the same 1 inch. Basically, we didn't touch anything on our hip line, so we'll leave it like that. Then we'll go to our knee line and also come out by 1 inch, and on our skirt length, we come out by 1 inch, thereby creating a new shape for our skirt. So I'll just connect it like this with a marker so that to be clear, and then we don't get confused with the initial line there. So this is it. Normally I would like to clean this line so that you will not just get confused, but let's just shade the portion that will be going out. Oh, you really need to pay attention when doing this shading, sorry. So this is it, and basically this inner portion is now our skirt. So always be good to clean this initial line so that it's clear and easy. So we'll then shape our dart. Being that our waist is 8, the midpoint is 4, we'll just shape our dart at 0.4 like this. Now I'll use 6 inch for my dart length, just like I used in the front measurement, and then I'll just connect it. Then I'll take 1/2 inch to the left and 1/2 inch to the right, just like I did, because I only left 1 inch for my dart allowance. Now if you left more than 1 inch, just divide it by 2 and spread out the way you left it. So now, because of the small confusion that happened around that zip allowance, I'll just proceed to cut this pattern so that you guys don't get confused at all. Sorry, don't forget that this is our waist to hip, then our waist to knee, and then our skirt length. And this is our back pattern. So now I'll just go ahead and cut. Now our back pattern, be very careful not to cut the wrong line. So this is the line we'll be cutting out, and then we'll go in and cut this way to create our back hip curve like that. Then you cut the rest of the skirt block. Oops, I almost cut that line again. See why I said you need to pay really keen attention. So I'll stick it down with a tape. Basically, that is all for our skirt pattern. In another video, I'll show you how to cut and join the skirt. If you found this video useful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this. Feel free to drop your comments and observations as well. Thank you for watching. Bye.